Do you believe in alternate universes?
You are listening to Delayed Replay.
The improvised movie review podcast. Wink.
Everything is fine here. We're all fine. Just sit tight and listen to them talk about the movies they definitely saw.
Don't delay. We have to listen right away.
Hello, listeners. Welcome to another episode of Delayed Replay, kind of a holiday special of sorts, which we're calling Dunecember, since we're going to be talking a bit about the new Dune movie, as well as other Dune-related things. But before that, talking about other holiday-related things. I'm your host, as always, Steven Schinder. And with me for this episode, you've heard him before on the Top Gun Maverick episode, if you've been following along. It is Vinny Tangherlini.
Hi. Glad to be back.
Yeah, and thanks for letting me crash on your couch here in Chicago so we could celebrate Dunecember together, man.
Totally. It's the most wonderful time of any year, but particularly this year.
Oh yeah. It's kind of weird how I think every adaptation of the first Dune book has come out in December of the years that they've come out.
I think so.
Yeah, but Dunecember can be any time of the year if any of you listeners want. I mean, we're making this holiday up, so just do whatever you want with it.
Yeah.
It's great to be here in Chicago because of all the snow, and one of the Dunecember traditions that we do is instead of building snowmen, we build snow dunes.
Yeah. Big old sandworms popping out of our snow dunes.
Yeah, I've even got these sour gummy worm things because they have the sandy texture, and it's just fitting,
Yeah, very. Like a demented Hoth.
Yeah. Ever notice how Hoth sounds like the opposite of a weather you'd expect?
Yeah. Yes. Yes, exactly.
Yeah. We'll get into a couple other of the Dunecember traditions that have been made up, but first, let's go into our favorite holiday movies and specials and traditions and whatnot. So,
Sure.
Vinny, what are some of the must watches or must listens even for you every year?
Oh man. Well, this is cheesy and campy, but I love White Christmas. It is a dumb movie, but something about it makes me just smile every time. So that's always a must watch for me, I think.
Yeah, a friend of mine was telling me about that movie, and she was surprised I hadn't seen it.
Oh yeah, it's just dumb. I don't know. The plot is absurd, and it's two army vets are oh hey, we're both also really good performers. Let's be a singing, dancing act together. And then they fall in love with these two sisters, and they all just go doing dance song stuff in Vermont. It's just somebody's terrible fever dream.
And this was from the 50s, right?
Yeah, 55 or something like that.
Yeah, maybe 54. Is it in black and white or in color? Because with films from that period, it's it could be either or,
For sure. It is in color. It's in Technicolor.
Oh, nice. Yeah, I really need to get around to watching that because, I know it's a classic, and not all classics are necessarily good, but
Right.
I do want to see if I'd want to add that to my annual holiday list, because I feel each year people have these holiday movies that are staples for them, and there might be new ones or maybe old ones that they haven't seen yet, and it's a trial and error thing, seeing if the ones they haven't seen are good enough for them to want to keep each year.
Right.
So yeah, I remember last year me and my brother watched a Disney Channel movie that had Bryan Cranston in it, but it also wasn't very good. So that's probably not sticking.
Yeah.
But yeah, some of the staples for me are like there's like the Jim Carrey How the Grinch Stole Christmas, which
Oh, yeah. That's
yeah,
killer.
yeah, like parts of it here and there have not aged well. I would like cut out, but Carrey's performance as the Grinch is like he's like just so into it, and also I love how they like touch upon the commercial aspect and how people focus too much on that.
Yeah. It's a stellar cast.
Yeah, and I mean the 3D animated one with Cumberbatch wasn't bad either. Like it took a bit to grow on me, but I do like how it kind of touches upon like the anxiety of like not knowing whether or not to like be able to celebrate with others and stuff like that. But
Right.
I do prefer the Carrie one still, I think.
Yeah, I think me too.
A more recent one that came out last year is this animated movie on Netflix called Klaus. And
Yeah, that was been recommended to me a couple of times, but I haven't seen it.
oh yeah, you need to watch it. It has like Emperor's New Groove vibes to me.
Okay.
But like the main character is like a postman or mailman or whatever you call it, and like he meets the person who like pretty much he meets Klaus, who obviously is Santa Claus, and it's basically like an origin story for like Christmas traditions and the whole Santa Claus thing, and it's pretty good, pretty lighthearted and fun and funny, good music and whatnot.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so I definitely recommend adding that to your list. Are there like any others that you like?
Oh man, there's so many like good ones. This is more of a Thanksgiving tradition, but season for everything but planes, trains, and automobiles. It's one of my favorite movies. And so I watch that every Thanksgiving Day, and usually at some point around post Thanksgiving, pre Christmas, just for more fun, because it's just such a blast. You know, living here and having my parents back in California, I travel a lot for the holidays. The relatable nature of the issues of trying to get anywhere during a high stress time, and Steve Martin and John Candy are just pure brilliance.
Oh yeah, the plot of it kind of, well, I haven't seen the movie by the way, but yeah, that's another shocker, I guess. But yeah, the plot of it kind of reminds me of that King of the Hill Thanksgiving episode where like they're at the airport and like can't get where they want to go. So I don't know if that's like a reference to this movie or what.
It might be. I know the episode you're talking about. I'd have to look at it again, but yeah, like it's very similar.
Yeah, well, like there are like some that I still need to watch. Like, my friend was also surprised I hadn't seen Christmas Vacation yet.
Oh, it's the 80s. You just haven't watched a lot of 80s Christmas movies, I guess.
Right, and 50s ones for that matter.
Yeah.
But I've seen a version of Miracle on 34th Street and It's a Wonderful Life. So I've seen a couple older ones here and there. Speaking of Thanksgiving traditions, my friend Keon, who is on a Trust Your Doctor, a Doctor Who podcast, his Thanksgiving tradition used to be that like he'd watch the Star Wars holiday special every year.
Oh my god, that's a tradition that we should do for Dunecember. Oh man, what a
yeah, it's weird because like I first watched that holiday special when I was 12, and I was like, that wasn't so bad. And then I watched it again 2 years ago, and I was like, oh my gosh, that was horrible.
And so awful.
Yeah, and I only watched it again recently because my friend Joey Mays, who's on Tangents with Friends, he and a buddy or a couple buddies of his did like a commentary like while show while watching the holiday special, so that made it more palatable, I guess. But the recent Lego Star Wars holiday special is pretty good, though, on Disney Plus.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
I haven't watched. I have Disney Plus. Maybe I'll check that out. I love all the Lego Star Wars stuff, the games, everything. Just so funny.
Yeah, like I remember when I got that first Lego Star Wars game, it came with like 1 or 2 tickets to see Revenge of the Sith for free.
Yeah,
that was
that
amazing.
sounds right.
So I guess we can like go into a couple other Dunecember traditions. So
Yeah.
So at the beginning of Dune, like any iteration, there's like the scene where it's like, "What's in the box?" And so, since we are, of course, in the same room together while recording this,
Right.
Here is a box. It's all gift wrapped and whatnot. But unlike regular holiday season presents or whatever you call it, it has a slot in it, so you have to like stick your hand in there and pull out the gift that I bought for you.
Oh boy. Okay. Oh, look at this.
Do you like it?
Yeah. You can't go wrong with a miniature statue of Sting playing Faye and Ratha.
Yeah, I
you
just
can't
had
go
to.
wrong. You knew exactly what I wanted.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, Sting in the David Lynch Dune movie, that was odd casting, you know?
Oh, but I loved it.
He was also great as himself in B-Movie.
Oh my god, yeah. I forgot he was in that. I don't know what movies Sting is in, but if those are just the two, that would be pretty incredible.
Well, he also plays himself in The Wedding Singer, which, even though it came out in '98, I think it takes place in the '80s, and it's actually, I'd say it's in top 5 Adam Sandler movies. I know it's not a very high bar, but I think it's one of the like legitimately good Adam Sandler movies, along with like Big Daddy and Happy Gilmore. And
yes.
8 Crazy Nights. That's a holiday
8 Crazy
movie
Nights
too.
is so good. Yeah, it's part of Dunecember.
Yeah. Yeah, me and my brother love 8 Crazy Nights. I think they could have like cut out like the poop jokes and whatnot, but it's got great songs. Like it has real bangers, you know?
Yeah, no, it's good.
Yeah, all right. So I guess I'll see like what you got for me, right?
Yeah, put your hand in the box.
What's in the box?
Another part of Dunecember is watching just that scene.
Yeah.
Of 7.
Oh my gosh!
Is it what you expected?
I didn't know what to expect, but like, it's what I've been wanting. You got me these like, okay, so I know people usually don't love socks as like a gift, but you got me like the like multicolored like really comfortable ones that I've been wanting to like wear, like, you know, those sweater sock things. Like I love them. You know, men's socks, like, you know, as they're labeled in stores and whatnot, they're pretty bland and boring, and it's super depressing that they can't be like these bright green or pink or purple even, and it's like, why can't they be these colors? They're great.
Yeah.
Oh man, yeah, I'm just putting those socks on right now.
Yeah, I can see because you're on the other end of the couch from me.
Yeah.
I'm glad they fit. You never know with sizing.
Yeah.
Socks. It's like one size fits most. You never know.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know if like you do this too, but I've gotten to a point in my adult life where I don't even care if the socks match anymore. So like they might be different lengths, different designs.
I'm not there yet. I still like matching socks.
All right, that's fair. All right, so another Dunecember tradition is that of course, one of the things in Dune is spice. So
Right.
yeah, so of course we have spicy food on this table in front of us. Like, we got hot wings, which are like the only spicy food I will tolerate. We got spicy salad for some reason,
Mm-hmm.
and spiced potatoes, kind of like what they mentioned on that podcast, Hello from the Magic Tavern.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, but like another part of this is like we provide our spicy hot takes about something. So, like it could be about a movie or something. It could be like an unpopular opinion. Like that's spicy hot take, you know.
Oh yeah.
So,
Yeah.
so do you want to go first or should I go first?
Why don't you go ahead? Because mine might be all too shocking.
Okay. All right. I think this is one that you have heard before, but I don't know if like the listeners have heard. So, prequels are a thing, right?
Right.
And sometimes they can be hit or miss, or they can be just okay. But I think the best prequel of them all is Twin Peaks Fire Walk with Me.
Oh, yes. I love Fire Walk with Me.
Yeah, like it's it's like such a tragedy, but like okay, so like I think when it came out in 1992, people who were fans of the Twin Peaks show were like expecting some of the more lighthearted, sitcom-y, silly parts of Twin Peaks, but like because of the subject matter of Fire Walk with Me, it had to be tragic, and there are like some odd moments and some really great music and surreal moments, and it's unlike prequels that would feel pressured to like dovetail right into what they take place before, or like do all the things that you expect to happen in the origin story. Like this one, like it was a prequel, it led into the first episode, but it also like did its own thing and introduced new lore, I guess.
Right. It expanded upon characters that like didn't get the fullest of treatments. I don't know, for me, it serves as like a sequel almost. Like there are aspects of it that are continuations of things that the series set up. Chronologically, it's taking place before. Like you learn things about like the one-armed man and like various characters that you didn't know enough about by the end of the season 2 of the show.
Yeah, and like there are even a couple scenes involving a certain character that like continue from the end of the second season, because it involves the Red Room, which is like kind of outside of linear time.
Right.
So there's cool things like that, and it has like David Bowie playing Philip Jeffries. That's like a David Lynch thing, I guess, to like bring these musicians in these weird roles in his movies.
I think he just he's such a dynamic director and someone that people just want to work with, that he kind of can just come knocking and people are like, yeah, sure, I'll do your movie. Like,
yeah, and
I don't
like,
even have to really know what it is or what it's about, but I'll do it.
Yeah, and I don't know if you've seen like the deleted scenes from the movie that like were released
the
as like
90 minutes of footage, like a whole separate movie. Yes,
yeah,
I've seen it.
The missing pieces. I just love how so like in the movie, like the scene where like Philip Jeffries walks into the FBI office. I'm not gonna like spoil everything, but that scene, and then like the weird convenience store scene is like overlaid over that. I actually prefer those two scenes separately, like how they are in the missing pieces, and like the convenience store scene is like one of the best, if not the best, like scenes in all of cinema for how otherworldly and like the music and dialogue and soundscape are. I just love like Philip Jeffries like just teleporting and being like scared, but also like it's kind of funny the way he and other people are reacting.
Yeah. It's a gold mine of a movie, I think. And of course it was far too niche and for a theatrical release. But
Right.
I think if you're a fan of the series, it's a must watch.
Yeah, I think people have like come around on the movie in recent years and seen like how truly artistic it really is, and like the ending like just brings me to tears. So, like the final scene, and it's like the very last scene, and it's just like it's a ride, like start to finish, and it begins with like a half-hour FBI investigation that's kind of disconnected from some of the story. And like the first couple of times I watched that, I was kind of bored by it. But the most recent time I watched it, I was like, for some reason, very like my eyes were glued to like that whole act. I don't know why.
It's different. It's a nice setup. It sets up the base, right? You get this very straightforward, realistic version of what's going on, so that then the movie can spiral off of that and be like, oh, you thought you had an understanding of what David Lynch was about to do? Surprise, it's David Lynch, and you have no clue what's happening. Like,
yeah. I mean, it's David Lynch, and you have no clue what's happening is a good way to describe this movie.
Yeah, a good way to describe all his work.
Right. All right, so what is your spicy hot take?
My spicy hot take is that the worst Beatle is John Lennon.
Oh, wow. Like musically take. Or?
Both. Musically, humanically,
oh, wow.
It's the worst Beatle, I think. Even Belingo, knowing the weight of that statement.
Wow, like I don't know how to react to that.
I told you it might be all too shocking. The podcast,
because like I know Lennon wasn't a perfect person, but also like I do enjoy like his music, and
I'm not saying he's bad. Like I don't think he's a bad musician, but that's my hot take.
Okay, I mean, I do think Harrison got more experimental in some of his solo stuff, which was pretty cool. It's also kind of funny that you mentioned the Beatles, because earlier I was thinking about how like we almost had like a Lord of the Rings movie that would have starred the Beatles, and it probably would have been really bad.
Yeah. Oh no, that would have been so bad.
Yeah, but at the same time, I'm like curious, like what that would have looked like. This will be the last Dunecember tradition we go into before like talking about Dune proper. But this tradition is called the weirding way. So like we'll each mention something weird that we enjoy that like society might not. Well, like it doesn't have to be like drastic. It's just like a little weird habit or something. So I can go first for this one.
Sure, yeah.
So I think that popcorn goes well with Coca-Cola poured into it.
Oh.
Or the other way around, like popcorn in Coca-Cola.
Never tried that. I'm not sure I want to. But okay.
It's like not even like the best taste ever. Like it's it's not like mind-blowing or whatever, but for some reason I just like the sogginess of the popcorn and with Coca-Cola on it. I don't know why.
Wild. Hey, I believe it. I might try a few pieces, but I don't know. Sogginess is a tough. I'm a very texture oriented eater.
Right.
So sogginess might be tough for me. Well, I can do another food one.
Okay.
And this one I've told people, and if anyone has tried this, they always agree with me. So pickles dipped in peanut butter is actually really good. And
I'm not even sure that's like an unpopular opinion, but
really,
yeah,
I feel like it's
great.
So absurd, but everyone I know that's done it is like, oh yeah, that's great, and everyone I know that hasn't done it is like, ugh. But listeners, I challenge you to just try it. Just take a little scoop of peanut butter out. That way you don't have a bunch of pickle juice in your peanut butter. But yeah, I don't know if it's unpopular, but it's definitely a weird thing that I've been adamant of. It used to be my favorite snack as a kid, so I've been in it for a while, in the peanut butter pickle train.
Right. Well, on that note, I do, like, growing up, I've enjoyed, like, drinking the pickle juice out of the jar after all the pickles are gone.
A pickleback for your pickle eating.
Is that a Nickelback reference?
No, pickleback is like a real thing. It's like a chaser to drinks at a bar. You can get a pickleback. Sometimes they'll have pickle juice. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know why I never knew that, but okay.
It's not common because most bars don't have pickles. Usually it's a sports bar that has, burgers and hot dogs and that kind of thing.
Okay, and I don't follow sports, so that makes sense.
There you go. And now we have learned the difference between the two of us.
Yes. Well, I mean, comedy sports, right?
Right. Yep.
So yeah, I guess we'll like go into like Dune proper. So like, what have been your experiences with Dune and how like you got into it?
Well, when I was my dad is a big sci-fi dude. Had stored all his books. So the short version of the story, which is already going to be long, is my dad's pretty old. When he had me, he was 40, so he's almost 70 now. And so when I was a kid, like 8, 9, 10. His eyes were getting so bad that he struggled to read books. So he just put all his old sci-fi books in my closet because I just had room because I was a kid. So my closet wasn't full of crap yet. But so I would just like read these books that he had left. So, he was so excited because I was being, introduced to things that he had loved, like Ender's Game, the Foundation series, The Well of Souls, which is an old, amazing series by Jack Shocker. They're just like these old, like 60s, 70s sci-fi books that he had read when he was my age at the time. So it was like a cool experience. And of course, buried within there was Dune. And I know that I read it as a kid, but I think like in the way that you often read books as a kid that are over your head, it was totally not something I was totally comprehending. And so I vaguely remember, but I do remember being super into both movie versions that were out when I was a kid, which was obviously the 1984 David Lynch version, which is a mind trip, but also the miniseries that the Syfy channel did in like 2000 or maybe 2001.
Yeah, it's 2000.
Awesome. Yeah. And I loved that. I would watch that all the time. We had it recorded from the Syfy channel on a VHS tape that we would watch. So that's really how I got into it. And then, like in college, maybe, I over like a spring break, my family was going to San Diego, so I went down there with them, and I just put Dune in my bag as like, okay, maybe I'll read this. And I reread the whole thing over the week. I was obsessed, and I was like, oh my gosh, I like remembered parts that I was so into, and I rediscovered the parts that I'd completely forgotten from when I was probably like 9 the last time I read it. And it was immediately was like, oh my God, this is one of my favorite books. And since then I've reread it almost every other year. Because it's just so amazing, and I've done so much lore, and I've watched the documentary there was that old version.
Is it Jodorowsky's Dune?
Yes.
Yeah, I watched that too.
Which would have been insane, and I wish that movie got made.
Yeah, imagine talking about a Dune movie that didn't come out. Like
Seriously though, I'm so obsessed with that. I want to know.
Yeah, it's like that song from Tarzan.
I
Oh
want
man,
to know. Can you
can you
tell
show
me?
me? I want to know about the Dune I've not seen.
Tell me more. Please
Tell,
tell me
tell me more. Tell me more. Tell me more.
about Dune.
Yeah, like he's talking about like doing like a 12 to 20 hour feature film.
Right. Just like, oh my God, like beyond the limits of what we can possibly understand. But yeah, so I when I was a kid, I did the deep dive of reading all of the Dune books, all 6 of Herbert's original, and I read some of his son Brian's books, and my opinion, which could be controversial to big Dune fans, but I feel like the further into the series you get, it's a diminishing returns. The quality goes way, way, way down. For me, I think Dune
I
original.
think that's actually a common Dune fan opinion, like from what I've
Yeah,
seen.
it's pretty common. I know some diehards that are like, no, I would say Dune Messiah, the immediate sequel to Dune, because and this is spoilers, so plug your ears right now. But this is the single reason why it's good. They bring back a character that either for sure died or we're 99% sure dies in Dune. They bring him back through sci-fi magic in Dune Messiah, and it's an amazing choice. It's one of the best choices. So I think that makes it, and that subplot and that like technology that's being introduced is like, oh, this is how people actually can't die in this world. They can be brought back to life this way. Is pretty awesome. So those are the 2 that I prominentely display on my shelf. Dune
Oh
and
yeah,
Dune Messiah.
as I can see from this angle. Yeah.
Yeah. But the other ones I left in my closet back home. But yeah, so that's kind of my history with Dune. So naturally, in maybe 3 or 4 years ago, since the miniseries, there has been proposed Dune adaptations since like 08 maybe. It's been like, we're going to do this Dune movie. But when Villeneuve really started pushing for it, I was stoked and would read every article about it. It's, like I said, it's one of my favorite stories. So to like see it actually happening, and I love him as a director. So just knowing that was happening is, I was like, finally, someone who I have faith to do the story justice.
Yeah. The way I got into Dune was kind of different. So I'd been aware of it since like, I want to say mid to late 2000s, because I know that my brother was given one of the Dune books by like my grandma on our dad's side, or maybe it was both grandparents. I'm not sure, but I'm not sure which Dune book it was. Like at one point I knew the title, but I remember it. I think it might have said like something of Dune. So I guess it. I don't know if it was heretics or sandworms or something else.
Mm-hmm.
And I can't remember if it was one of the books that was just by Frank Herbert or if it was by Ryan and Kevin J. Anderson or something like that.
Right, yeah.
Like I asked my brother recently, like which Dune book it was, and he was like, "I don't know. It was green though," and like that doesn't help because there have been multiple printings of each of the books.
Right. Oh man. Although if I had to guess, I'm pretty sure my copy of Heretics of Dune was green, so that would be my guess.
Okay, yeah. So maybe it's that, but I don't know. If I ever find out for sure, I'll like put it in the show notes. But
yeah, with an Amazon link to a used copy of it.
Yeah, like or like one of the like $100 like super old copies that no one's gonna buy.
Right.
But yeah, so I didn't watch the David Lynch movie until like the early 2010s, I want to say, and like it was one of those things I like put on while doing other things. So I guess I wasn't like fully paying attention, but I remember like the Toto soundtrack had an impression on me. But what's weird is I don't know if this was just on the TV broadcast version that I watched, but like like in my memory of the movie, I thought there were more like overt like Toto guitar parts, like like cheesy 80s rock type of thing. But like rewatching the movie more recently, it's like, wait, did I like make that up in my head, or like what happened? Like the Toto music is more subdued than I remember.
It has the David Lynch touch, I feel like, where it's really orchestrated well, even though it's Toto. I think it does have its moments of just letting it rip.
Yeah.
But, you know, I think they do a good job toning it down.
Yeah, and like watching it this time around, like I was, you know, being a bit more familiar with Lynch, having watched like Eraserhead a few years ago and
right.
Blue Velvet last year, I want to say.
The biggies.
Yeah, but other than those two, like I've only seen like all of Twin Peaks, so like all those are like my frame of reference. But even with just those, like watching his Dune movie again, I was like, huh, this actually has some things that are kind of staples of David Lynch, like, you know, like deep blue, like on various parts of the screen, and like these surreal images that come up out of nowhere, or like just the whole thing about like dreams being a major theme. And it was like, yeah, it makes sense that David Lynch would direct this, but like at the same time, like watching it this time around, like I was watching it, trying to pay attention, and I still wasn't sure like what to make of it by the end, because like you get to like the final scene and then roll credits and like 80s credits song, and then it's like, wait, what? That's it?
Yeah, it's so, because it's short. Like it's maybe 2:10. Like they don't give him a ton of time to do Dune. Dune is like a 600, 700 page book. Like it has a lot in there, and not even just plot wise. There's a lot of subtleties, and to try to do that in a 2-hour movie is really hard. So I think that's my biggest issue with the Lynch version, is just that he's trying to do it all and his style, and there's not enough time.
Right. Whereas Jodorowsky thought that like 12 to 20 hours would be enough time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that's the right answer either.
I kind of want to talk about that documentary real quick. Like,
yeah,
it's so trippy. Like it has, the documentary itself has some really good music, like synth stuff and whatnot, but like he wanted Pink Floyd to do the soundtrack, and like,
yeah.
And we've kind of come full circle, because like with that first Dune trailer, we saw that, oh, there's like a cover of Eclipse from Dark Side of the Moon.
Right.
And I don't know how familiar you are with Pink Floyd, but
relative, but not an expert.
Okay. This is a tangent, but I think like the first time that like I went to like one of because like you used to be captain of Improv Revolution over at UC Irvine, and I think the first time I went to the workshops of Workshop Revolution, I remember it might have been like the first game that I played in that workshop with people. It was like where we had to like pitch a certain thing like as if we're like advertising it, and so me and the person I was partnered with were like advertising like a doorbell that plays like different songs, and one of the things like he said, it plays "We Wish You Merry Christmas," like that whole song. But like the thing I said was that it could even play Pink Floyd music, and then I was like, taking away the moments that make up a dull day. Yeah, that was wild.
That's wild. I love that.
Yeah, I think I did the Floyd thing and then he did the Christmas song, but yeah, that's like a very vivid memory. But anyway, but yeah, it was like coming full circle with like that cover of a Pink Floyd song in that trailer, and I was surprised like how much Pink Floyd music we got in this new movie, but we'll get to that.
Yeah. We'll get to that.
Yeah. That what's also weird about the Jodorowsky's Dune documentary is like when I think this is like an hour and 8 minutes in, when he's like, when adapting a novel, you can't respect it, and it was like a weird thing where like he wants to like do his own thing, because like in his ending, like Paul dies, and then like people get enlightened somehow, and then like all of the like plant life grows out of the planet, and it sounds like a really trippy thing, but like the way he describes it is really cringe worthy, about how like he says, like he compares like a novel to a bride, and like saying that you have to like not respect the bride, and I won't repeat the exact wording here because it's like really bad, but he's like, I was doing this to Frank Herbert, and it sounds like very out of touch on his part and not very sensitive, but
yeah, it's definitely not very sensitive. But I think he does have a point, I think, in that it's tough. You're never going to be able to adapt literature to film by nature of the difference in medium. So using your strengths, I don't necessarily am pushing for unconventional twists or changing the plot entirely, but using the strengths of a visual medium, I think is part of what he's getting at, is that like in a visual storytelling platform, you have to do things differently than the book would do. And so I think some of the best movie adaptations are the ones that do that. The ones where the movie exceeds the novel are the ones where they're saying, okay, we're not just going to put this book on screen. We're going to find a way to make the film so visually magnificent that it exceeds the novel.
Yeah, like one of my favorite novels is Red Dragon, the first novel to feature Hannibal Lecter. And that got adapted into Manhunter in 1986, which was distributed by the Dino De Laurentiis company, which I think also distributed Lynch's Dune, weirdly enough. But
that's funny.
Yeah, like there were some deviations from the novel in that movie, but like as a standalone film, it really works. Like the cinematography and the music give it like an 80s noir vibe that I really dig. Like it goes off the rails toward the end, but like I dig it as a movie. And then 16 years after that, we got the movie Red Dragon with like, instead of Brian Cox, it's Anthony Hopkins, but Hopkins didn't do the scenes as well as Brian Cox did, I don't think. And
I think he's tired by the time he got to Red Dragon. I think he was tired of playing Hannibal Lecter.
Yeah, probably. Like it feels phoned in, like and not just because of the scene where like he uses a phone, but and like Edward Norton is a good actor, but he didn't play a Will Graham who felt haunted or like broken or whatnot. So like I feel like there are some things that particular movie gets more accurate, like with the killer Francis Dolarhyde and his backstory. But like as a film, it doesn't feel like it stands on its own very well. It just feels like prelude to The Silence of the Lambs, and it doesn't have its own distinct style. It kind of feels like it doesn't really have its own visual identity.
Yeah, it feels like the third in a loose trilogy where united
like the
only
Hopkins
by
one.
Like it feels very what it was. I feel like just like, oh, this worked really well in 1995 for Silence of the Lambs, so let's just do two more.
91.
91. Wow, because I feel like Red Dragon's like 03, so it's a lot later too.
Oh,
like
Red Dragon's like, 02.
Yeah, he's like, I'm beyond this, you know? I did Hannibal, and I'm doing this now. Like, I don't need to do another one of these. So, yeah, it feels very, just like, oh, should we try another one? Let's just do another one.
Yeah, and then, like, a few years later, they, like, coerce the author into writing Hannibal Rising so that they can make a prequel film based on that.
Right, which is so bad. So
Right.
bad. Though the show...
I love the show.
I love the show. I loved the show.
Yeah.
I wish it had more.
Yeah, this might be another spicy hot take, but Mads Mikkelsen, in my opinion, is the best Hannibal Lecter.
He's so good.
Yeah, because like
I
can imagine him like blending into society, and that's even scarier. And also, he has like a really good fashion sense, and
yeah,
he really goes all out cooking the different meals.
Oh yeah,
yeah. There's actually a Clarice TV show coming to CBS in February, CBS, because like the Dino De Laurentiis company has the rights to like Red Dragon, Hannibal, and Hannibal Rising, but MGM has the rights to Silence of the Lambs. So they're doing like a Clarice TV show where they can't even mention Hannibal Lecter. And like, I've been skeptical about this, especially when like a few years ago it was being proposed for Lifetime of all channels.
Oh no.
But
no.
But I looked at the teaser trailer, and I'll link it in the show notes, but it does look kind of artsy. But I'm not sure if it'll be as artistic as Hannibal the show was. Like, that was just like...
Yeah.
Like, Brian Fuller has said that he was trying to do Hannibal by way of David Lynch, like making it very surreal and whatnot. And it has like really killer, timeless music in it. That Hannibal show.
Right.
But anyway, another weird thing is like the 16-year gap between Manhunter and the Red Dragon movie. Like, there's also a 16-year gap between the David Lynch Dune and the sci-fi miniseries Dune.
Yeah. I guess that's just the amount of time we need to be ready for another one.
Yeah, I mean, my friends on Trust Your Doctor were like, they might have mentioned it on their other podcast, Triple Play, how like the Godfather trilogy, there's like a 16-year gap between the second and third one. And like, I've noticed that there's also a 16-year gap between like the end of the Star Wars original trilogy and the beginning of the prequel trilogy.
What is happening? What is this weird
and
world?
also the end of like classic Doctor Who in '89. And like, if you ignore the 8th Doctor movie, like, the show doesn't come back until 2005, which is also 16 years later.
This is nuts. What weird wormhole have we just discovered?
Oh, wormhole. Nice.
No, there we go. I didn't even plan that. Wow.
But anyway, so on your recommendation, I listened to like the audiobook of Dune, you know, the Audible one.
Yeah.
And
it's great.
I'm not sure that I fully absorbed everything. Like, I really liked how it started, but like, it probably wasn't a good idea to like listen to it at like double the speed, because like that is a function on there. But yeah, I tried that, and once I got to the end, I wasn't sure that I fully got it, so I started over normal speed, and it's like, I'm still not sure if I like really get Dune. Like, I watched a sci-fi miniseries as well on its like 20th anniversary recently, and it's like, okay, yeah, I see, like, this is, I understand it's like more close to the book, but like the TV budget isn't doing it any favors, you know?
No, definitely not. And the 2000 graphics are you know,
yeah, like
struggling.
Like, you have,
it's not Lord of the Rings, you know.
Yeah, like you have the Baron who like when he's floating, like it looks organic in the Lynch movie, but in the show it seems weird.
Yeah.
This is another weird coincidence I've noticed, but like David Lynch's Dune movie came out December the year after the original Star Wars trilogy ended. because they were trying to someone described it as like thinking that they were gonna make an adult version, like Star Wars for adults, and let's see, the sci-fi miniseries came out like December the year after Phantom Menace came out, but like this new one, the Denny, I don't know how to pronounce his last name, but
Villeneuve, I think.
Villeneuve. Okay, his version came out like December after the sequel trilogy ended, and
Weird.
yeah,
Kind of too much good sci-fi all at once, I guess.
right. It's weird because Dune. I think it's been like confirmed that like Dune was an influence on Star Wars itself, but like we don't know what sci-fi movies would have been like if that Dune movie had come out before Star Wars. But now it's like it kind of has to like try to compete with Star Wars, the very thing it influenced, and
right.
It's just really weird, you know?
Yeah, it's like Star Wars. Yeah, is so mainstream, and I don't mean that in a negative way. Like, I just mean it's so accessible to people.
For normies.
Yeah, but people know Star Wars. You say Star Wars, and almost everyone will know what you're talking about. And Dune is like the pinnacle of science fiction. It's, you know, anybody that knows anything about science fiction, that loves science fiction, will know Dune. But like, you go up on the street and you're like, do you know Dune? People are like, what? Like, so it's like weird how things like that, just like timing and stuff, can totally surpass each other.
Right. But like even if like you don't like fully understand or even appreciate the book, it's like who says you can't appreciate the holiday that's based around that book without
right.
like, fully understanding and appreciating the book it's based around, you know?
Right.
Yeah, like we can still celebrate Dunecember.
Always. It's always in our hearts.
Yeah, it's just worming its way in our hearts. So like, what is it that you love? What are like the different aspects that you love most about Dune?
I love that it's so, I think it's twofold, and the reasons are equal and opposite of each other. The first is that I love that Dune is so unique in its science fiction world. It isn't, not everyone has a blaster. It's not a space exploration, first contact kind of story. It's almost like a political thriller, especially the first third of the book is all about the governing bodies of the planet and how ruling Arrakis should be done, and the major players and the family. And so I love it for it not being like a classic limited sci-fi in like this, or like these are the technologies that I've chosen to have, or it's space. It feels very like some guy had an idea that just happened to be set in the future. And so I love the story aspect. But the other thing is like there's something really funny about it's set in like the year 20,000 or something. So like I would feel like a lot of sci-fi is like, okay, it's 3,200. You know, it's like in a conceivable future, right? That's 1,000 years from now. We know the world has existed for thousands of years. From a human timeline standpoint, 1,000 years ago, we're looking at the Middle Ages. 1,000 years from now, okay, the year 20,000 is like almost unfathomable, the amount of technological rise and fall. And so that then in the book, there's so much like 60s technology. Like, there's so many like, and I have this needle hidden in my sleeve, and if I prick you, you're poisoned. Which is like, okay. Like,
I mean, it's like how in Star Wars you have like the data tapes, right?
Right. Like it's so limited by the time it was written. It's like I've put it in the year 20,000 where anything is endless, and yet everyone still fights with like swords, legitimate swords, and like maybe like a weird plasma phaser shield type thing. but
Yeah.
like otherwise we're using swords. I mean, similar to Star Wars, like the lightsaber, like, yeah, okay, it's a sword, like technology that has light, but it's like it's still a sword. We like
Yeah.
there's something fun about like this era of sci-fi where, because technology had in real life at the time hadn't advanced so far, like the concept of the internet was unfathomable, but in the year 20,000 we're going to be poisoning each other with sticks, or like one of the characters has a fake tooth that contains a poison gas that he commits suicide with and kills other characters with, like, and that's a real tactic from like World War One. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
like, so the technology is so limited by the time in which the book was written. So it's got all this futuristic concept, but it also is so quintessentially like 60s that there's something kind of beautiful in that cross section. It's like a time capsule of the time it was written, while also having so much forward thinking. That's kind of what really draws me to it. I love reading old sci-fi because sometimes it predicts things, like I mean, this isn't sci-fi, but in Infinite Jest, David Foster Wallace essentially describes Netflix and Skype in more generic terms, but he like describes these technologies, and that's like from 98 or 99. And then of course, not 6-7 years later, those technologies exist. There's something cool about looking at a book that predicts technology that does happen, but also that like can't predict anything similar to what's going to happen. Like, it's still so ingrained in the time it's in. So I love that about the book.
Well, I mean, with the way that people get nostalgic about like the 80s or like even medieval stuff and like LARP groups, like you could conceivably think of like these throwback type of technologies in the far future, I think.
Mm-hmm. And there's like the thing about like, okay, this story is set in the year 20,000. Cool. How many rise of civilizations and falls will we have?
Yeah.
You know, like in the next 18,000 years, how many like absurd changes in technology could happen? I mean, if the internet explodes internationally and just goes down forever, that's a whole shift that could happen, and then rebuild itself and fall again and rebuild itself and fall, you know, like,
yeah.
So I don't know, there's something fascinating about, like, it's so far in the future, you could pretty much say anything and you'd be like, well, yeah. You know,
like we probably won't make it that far, so we won't get to say this was accurate to this year.
Right. You know, if you set your sci-fi novel in the year 2060, I'm coming for you. I will tell you. It's like the OG Lost in Space show was set in 1998. Like, they filmed it in the 50s, and they were like, in the year 1998, we're going to be sending families to Alpha Centauri. And it was like, okay, well, you're wrong.
Yeah, I mean, 2001: A Space Odyssey, as cool and trippy as it is, really set itself up for failure.
Didn't make it.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess we'll like go into the gosh, I don't know how to pronounce his name still. The Denny
Villeneuve is how I've heard it.
Yeah. Okay, that movie. Like I've seen a couple of his movies. I saw Arrival, and I know lots of people love it, but I wasn't that into it. But I did enjoy Blade Runner 2049. Like it's still I still prefer the first movie, but 2049 was a really great follow-up to that movie.
Yeah, I love him as a director. He's done so many movies that, while they may not be like my favorite movies, he's so good. Like Sicario is just brilliant.
He did Prisoners as well, right?
Yeah,
I loved that movie.
So good. I loved Blade Runner 2049. I feel like it gave me a lot of hope and faith for Dune, because 2049 was so well done and so well thought out, and I liked that it, even though the decisions about certain characters and whether they were replicants or not was was divisive for fans. I feel like it made a choice and it just stuck to it, which was what was important. Like I felt like he approached that movie really well for being set up for a lot of failure. This kind of cult classic turned international loved movie, to then come back so many years later and try to do a sequel that needed to include things from the first one, but also couldn't include all of those things, like, because it was so much later timeline wise. To me, it just was so well done, and the way he approached the sci-fi and the visual way, again, that he approached the world, I was like, oh, he's gonna do Dune. It's gonna look and feel awesome, you know?
Yeah. And like this movie, like his Dune adaptation really like opens our eyes to like what more can be done with cinema. Like it doesn't feel as mainstream as like Star Wars movies. Like you really have to be like paying attention to the movie, but there's so much that's like there's like eye candy, and also like Hans Zimmer does a great job with the music, and it's like you know, we also have like the logo, which looks really cool because, you know, it's like the horseshoe shape. They use that for the D, the U, the N, and the E. But we don't see that the title until like Paul and his family are like going to Arrakis, and they see out the window. And it's like you see the title Dune like against the planet. It's kind of cheesy, but I thought that was funny.
Yeah. I don't know. It also calls back to like the very similar scenes from both previous adaptations, where it's very almost identical in feel, even if the words kind of display differently or whatever.
Yeah, and I really liked the like casting of this movie, like with the other Dune adaptations. Because, you know, in the book, Paul is 15, but like in the Lynch movie, Kyle MacLachlan was like 24. I'll cut that out. 24 when it was filmed. Alec Newman was 25 when the miniseries was filmed. So it seemed like they were playing aged up versions of the character. So it's like, yeah, there's no way they're 15 in this.
Right.
But Timothy Chalamet,
Chalamet, I think.
Chalamet. He was like 23 or 24 when this was filmed, but he's more believable as like you could believe he's playing like a 15-year-old character in this.
Yeah, he perpetually looks like a child, which is great. Like he's a good Paul, and he's got the acting chops. It's the other thing. Like Paul needs to anchor this movie, and Chalamet can anchor a movie.
Right. And Oscar Isaac as his dad, the Duke, I was really glad to see him in this movie because it's kind of weird after like the sequel trilogy that like he's gone to this. Like I feel like his character Poe Dameron became a depending on writer type of character, which is kind of frustrating. He did have good chemistry with the other characters whenever they had a banter, but you know, in Rise of Skywalker there was that reveal that he used to be a spice runner, which rubbed people the wrong way because, you know, the stereotype of like Latino drug cartels and stuff like that. But so now it's like kind of weird seeing him in this movie that also deals with spice.
Yeah. What a steal. Yeah, but his performance is brilliant. It's such I mean, in the first third of the book, Duke Leto is the main character, you know, like, I mean, yeah, like Paul is clearly like the story's setting up for Paul, but everything Duke Leto is doing, it's sort of like the Mufasa Simba aspect of like Lion King. Like, Duke Leto is such an important character, and so to get to watch Oscar Isaac in the first half of this movie really just sink his teeth into this role and be this character is incredible.
Yeah, and what'd you think of Rebecca Ferguson as Lady Jessica?
I think she's really good. Like, Lady Jessica is such a duality in character, right? Like, she's just the concubine, to the Duke. She's not his wife. She's not, but she is the mother of his heir, and she is like accepted by him in a way that the other concubines are not. Like, so, and she's like semi-famous in her own right. So I don't know, to watch somebody deal with all of that dynamism, especially because like I don't like Rebecca Ferguson hasn't done that much except like that I'm familiar with, except for like Mission Impossible, the like most recent ones. Isn't she in like Greatest Showman or something?
I still haven't seen that yet.
Okay, I think those are like she's an actor or an actress that's unfamiliar to me. So getting to watch her in a role that I think is like very deep and that can go beyond just a lot of the like I feel like in Mission Impossible she just sort of like they try to write her well, but it's a Mission Impossible movie, so she's just there because those are only about our man Tom Cruise. So to get her to actually get to like kind of see her doing the acting at work is super cool.
Yeah, for sure. And I'm glad that like Josh Brolin was cast as Gurney Halleck, because now we can call him Goonie Halleck.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah.
Goonie Halleck.
Yeah, I don't care if you played Cable and Thanos, like I'll always remember you as the older brother from the Goonies. Such a good movie.
It's great. The thing about Gurney Halleck that I like is he's sort of he's the weapons master and the balladeer. Like he like is equally willing to sling his lute over his shoulder and jam as he is like to be like, oh, you want to fight? Let's fight. But Brolin has such a good oh, I'm kind of washed up and getting too old for this crap vibe that I think is perfect for this character.
Yeah.
Especially in comparison to the other sort of sword fighting swashbuckling hero of the story, Duncan Idaho, who is Jason Momoa in the movie. Like, it's fun to watch the kind of like, I'm the young buck with the muscles and I'm ready to go, as Duncan Idaho kind of is. He's like, I'm ready to frickin' destroy. And Gurney Halleck's more like, ugh, I'm tired. Can we just drink wine and eat a good feast? No? All right, I guess I'll sword fight then. Like, it's fun to watch them play off each other.
Yeah, maybe the scene from Aquaman where he's in the desert was his audition tape for Dune.
Yeah.
Much like how the opening scene for Saw 1, where like the dude Adam wakes up in the water, might have been James Wan's Aquaman audition tape.
Yeah. Oh man. Yeah, the cast is stacked, which is, I mean, the Lynch film, the cast is stacked. It's the tradition of Dune movies. Even in the miniseries, like the cast is stacked of TV actors like Will Hurt, Ian McNeice, Giancarlo Giannini. Like, it's like, oh, we're throwing in as many famous people for the budget that we have.
Yeah, and I mean, in the Lynch movie, Patrick Stewart, before he was in Star Trek, was Gurney Halleck, and it's like a different performance. He's more like proper, like classic sword master type of person. And like seeing the body shields and how blocky they were in that movie, it's like, I really loved that look. It's kind of like Minecraft, so it's kind of ridiculous, but like it's a bold choice. So I was kind of disappointed when like the miniseries was like just made it like the shape of their body, and like this newer one did that too, but then like in the climax of a fight, the shield turns into like a big mecha suit type of thing.
Right. I think it's cool. It makes it look good. I mean, the concept is so clunky. Like, I press a button on my belt and it makes a giant shield is so clunky. And I think this gave it a nice 2020 feel where it doesn't feel like, yes, this is 1965 technology. Like, it feels like, this is something I can conceive existing in the future. With the knowledge of the world that I have, 55 years later, you know? When the book was written.
The shield belt kind of reminds me of like Toy Story 2 when there's that Buzz Lightyear who has like the new shield belt thing.
Yeah, like it does. Yeah, the cast in this is so good. Especially like they've done a good job putting big players in roles. Bautista as Raven and Charlotte Rampling, the Reverend Mother. These are roles that in the book are like one scene, and so to give it to these heavy hitters and then allow like in the film a little bit more just to fill out that world is such a smart move. So that it's not like, well, this is a throwaway part, we'll give it to a throwaway person. Like, every character matters in this. Even the ones that have 7 lines are very important to the understanding of the world.
Yeah, because like all the dialogue feels purposeful. Like sometimes they'll wax philosophically, but it's like really interesting stuff to hear. And you even get quotes every once in a while that appear at like the beginning of each chapter. Like one of my favorites is, "What do you despise? By this you are let me try that again. I'll cut that out. What do you despise? By this are you truly known." And it's like, yeah, you can tell a lot about a person by what they despise, like whether that be like, I don't know, Dune itself. I don't know. I can't think of a good example.
Well, it harkens back to Princess Irulan has all her novels that she's written about Moadim and stuff. Like, before each chapter, like, having that in the movie is so interesting and really ties it in for me.
Yeah, and like it's really, I guess it's easier to like soak in when it has like good music up against it, because you have Hans Zimmer who, like, even with a movie that people don't like very much, can still do like a really kick-ass soundtrack. Like this is another like hot take, but like Dark Phoenix, I know that lots of people didn't like it. I thought it was fine, but like the music for it is like my favorite X-Men movie soundtrack.
Yeah, it had a killer soundtrack. Even the trailers and stuff were killer in the soundtracks.
Yeah, and I could hear like echoes of like some motifs we've heard in like the Dark Phoenix soundtrack, but there are also like some newer things that Hans Zimmer did that really became iconic for this film. So it's like when you think back to this film, you'll think of like the themes, like you'll think of Paul's theme or like Channy's theme, and it's like they have very distinct like character themes, and it works really well.
He never ceases to amaze me with the way that he orchestrates.
Yeah, and like with the intense moments, like it really like gets the heart pumping. It's like like it sounds better than how I described it, but yeah, it's like you think back to it, it's like, yeah, that was such a great scene.
Yeah.
And I also love how he incorporated like Pink Floyd songs into the soundtrack. I wasn't expecting him to do like pretty much all of Dark Side of the Moon in this.
Throughout the whole thing. And even though like there would be moments when he clearly was taking just instrumental sections of the album and just kind of throwing them, like reorchestrating them to fit. It was a little trippy, but I think it fits the tradition that this movie has of being a little trippy. Even the miniseries, which is probably the most textbook adaptation from book 2, movie is a little trippy in the way that they bring it to life.
Yeah, so you might as well call this Dark Side of the Dune.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's kind of funny how like these bands like Pink Floyd and Toto, which make me think of Wizard of Oz, have been involved with like the Dune franchise in some way.
Yeah, really. And like I mean in the Jodorowsky version, he wanted Mick Jagger, right? To be in it. So like obviously like the Stones would have something to do with it if Mick Jagger's in it. Like I don't know. Like there's just a tradition of those kind of characters. And then being involved in the music.
What did you think of the musician who showed up as a character in this version?
Oh, yeah. Playing Fayed Ratha right at the end. I knew that they were going to keep it a secret, but then they had to reveal who it was.
Yeah.
Should we spoil it for the listeners?
Oh, I mean, yeah, I forgot to say spoilers ahead, but yeah, go ahead and do it.
Oh, it's a de-aged Sting again, reprising his role as Fayed Ratha. Never thought that was going to happen, but there it is.
Yeah, it's very, and like the technology was done so well. It's because
I was stunned. I was like, was that Sting? And yes, it was.
Yeah, I mean, they kind of did that to a character in Blade Runner 2049, so like, of course, they would try that again.
Right. Well, in Rogue One did it, I felt very successfully with, with the late Peter Cushing, and even Carrie Fisher at the very end there for like a second. I felt like it looked good, and so like I was like, oh, it looks good. I mean, it was for all of 5 seconds of film. What a way to end the movie, by the way. Just like a shot of Fayed Ratha with a knife. Like, holy crud.
Yeah.
As Sting. But yeah, it was what a twist.
He was like he said this is gonna sting as he was holding the knife. It was like roll credits.
It was I still have faith in the sequel, the second part of the film, but or I guess it's not even really a sequel; it's the second part of this duology.
Yeah, this Duneology.
Oh, there it is. But definitely put me back a peg, being like, really? We're just going to acknowledge Sting as Sting? Okay, I'll take it. Who else could play this part? No one. It's got to be Sting.
I mean, it's kind of like how only J.K. Simmons can play live-action J. Jonah Jameson in the Spider-Man movies, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, why would you do anything else?
Well, I mean, the TV miniseries did something else, but I guess it's not as memorable as Sting himself. Like that ending in itself is a stinger, like cliffhanger.
Right.
So, like, what % of the book did this cover exactly?
I feel like pretty close to half.
Right.
The book's broken into 3 parts, and I feel like it definitely the middle section is the like kind of like if you broke it down right. The first section is setting up the world, the political thriller aspect. The middle section is like the training montage of Paul becoming Muad'Dib. And then the third section is like his return to Dune proper. Even though he's on Dune the whole time, he's on Arrakis. The return to there, and then eventually going to see the Emperor and all that. So I feel like they definitely get into that second part, but like you haven't gotten to like the final act of that second part where like old characters presumed dead return. And the plan it is hatched. It's still like him training and stuff. So it feels pretty close to half. Yeah.
And like, I feel like this movie with its like 2.5 hour runtime or whatever it was, it did a good job with the pacing. Cause like reading the book, you could feasibly like make a Dune adaptation that has pacing problems. but I feel like they
Mm-hmm.
really mastered it here. And yeah, hopefully we don't have to wait 16 years for like the next part.
For the second part. Yeah, I think uh, like a strong adaptation should, they use the visual to explore what Herbert would expound upon for pages and pages. Villeneuve can do in one shot and be like, here it is. This is what he was talking about. And you got it so quickly.
Yeah, and one of the things that Jodorowsky talked about in the documentary was that he could imagine someone like animating his script, like his version of Dune.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, yeah, why hasn't there been an animated version of Dune? And so going into this movie, I was really surprised when they had scenes that would shift from live action to 2D animation or even 3D animation. It was so trippy.
It kept, again, it's that tradition of like, how trippy should this movie be? There's something about Dune that is so, like you said, like you listen to it and it's tough to understand. There's something otherworldly inherently in it. And so to emphasize that in this movie is a killer choice.
Yeah. Oh, we have to talk about the sandworm. Okay, so like,
yes,
when the sandworm appeared, I wasn't expecting the camera to like go into its mouth and like just pretty much just show its like whole anatomy and then come back out of the mouth.
Right.
And then
emphasizes its scariness. Like,
yeah,
because in the previous versions, I feel like the sandworms are incidental. Like they're there, but the book, that middle section is almost all metaphorically riding the sandworm. And even though we haven't gotten to that part in this movie yet, I feel like that's where it'll open in part two. Paul, like, learning how to do that, prepping for that, is such a important element in his development as this prophet character, you know, the sort of doing the impossible, preparing to do something that is impossible.
Yeah, and like we saw the sandworm in the trailer, but like I was not prepared for the revelation that like the sandworm we saw like is actually the tongue of the sandworm, which is even bigger than we thought.
Yes,
it's very SpongeBob.
So yeah,
the Alaskan bullworm.
Yeah, I never thought I would say that Dune was like SpongeBob, but here it is.
Yeah, and I mean, it also reminds me of Alien with like the tongue that kind of looks like, you know. So
yeah, it's very what's cool about this version, right? Dune is like the book is like some of the grandfather era of science fiction literature, but this movie gets to use the grandfathers of science fiction movies like Alien, like Star Trek, like Star Wars, like these old movies. This movie, the Dune movie, gets to use that. Whereas the book was before all that. It doesn't have any of that. So what's cool about this masterpiece is it brings in things that you recognize from other fandoms.
Yeah, for sure. And because like it's kind of funny because like on the Mandalorian we recently had like a Crate Dragon episode, and that felt very much like a sandworm type of thing. So this basically like one-upped it in terms of like the scale.
Yeah, and I think that's so. It's such a in the book, it's the scale of the sandworm is unfathomable, and so to really do that on screen and be like, this is incomprehensibly large. It feels a little like Tremors.
Yes,
like
the graboids.
Yeah, where it's like they like think they have an understanding, and then it's just like, no, it's so much worse and so much bigger and so much more insane. Like that is exactly how it should be.
Yeah. So like Mandalorian says this is the way, but in Dune we say this is the weirding way. Yeah. I'm glad they like kept that like a martial arts thing in this adaptation as well.
Yeah, really. There's something really cool about that element.
Yeah. what did you think of the balance between like how close they stuck to the book, but also like some of the deviations and differences that they had?
Well, there's the somewhat infamous gender flip of Dr. Leah Kynes that was announced in the casting, but like things like that, like little deviations like that, I think serve the film well. The book's written in 1965. There's so many dudes, like
yeah, just take out the N and put another D, and it's dude.
Yeah. So things like that I think are great, and there's several choices like that. There's also there's something very cool about the way that they've expanded characters. Like I said, like Dave Bautista is in a lot of this movie, and the character Raven is in the book, mentioned often, rarely seen. So to see the scenes,
it's just visually, like how Drax is rarely seen, right?
Yeah, right. To see also Bautista's in 2049. That just fired in my brain.
Oh yeah.
Man, that dude's on fire right now. To see the scenes that are talked about, I think is critical in a visual medium, rather than having characters have more dialogue, just show us the thing. So it's cool, even though those scenes sometimes are just snippets, like to just see them is so interesting and important, and it really brings weight to this character who you like hear so much. You're like, oh, he's so awful, he does all these evil things. In this, you're like, he's so awful, look at him do these evil things. So those changes I loved. I think the biggest issue I had was the relationship between Chani and Paul. It feels very forced to me in the movie. I get that, like, that relationship is very nuanced, because at the end of the book, Paul is gonna marry Princess Irulan. He's not, and Shani's gonna be his concubine and mother of his heir, similar to his dad before him, whose number one concubine was not his wife. So there's this whole interesting, like, it feels very puppy-lovey in this movie, and maybe that they're gonna expand upon it in part 2. But for me, I think there's so much nuance to this relationship, and such an importance of, like, this is Paul Atreides, Muad'Dib. He's saving the world, and I think Shani, they're not giving Shani enough credit. I think in the book she understands that more and knows that she will never be, even though Paul's like, you'll be my number one girl, like, she knows, like, well, that's not true. But in the movie they make it kind of like, oh yeah, okay. And I'm like, come on, Zendaya's a good actress. Give her more to do than just be like there and in love with Paul.
Yeah.
But I think my guess is that they're setting it up this way so that the shift in part 2 of Paul realizing that can't be will affect Chani more. Whereas in the book, she kind of sees it coming and knows, so she has kind of more of a silent acceptance. The twist might be more dramatic and more entertaining for an audience. But I don't know. For me, it just feels a little like silly puppy love bubblegummy that doesn't fit. I mean, Pink Floyd is playing in this movie. It doesn't fit the like running through the meadows like montage, even though that doesn't literally happen in this movie because there are no meadows, there's only sand. There is a little bit of this like, oh, here's a cool little bubblegum pop romance, and it's like that feels so out of place to me.
Yeah, get this romance garbage out of my sci-fi, am I right?
Yeah. No, but
I don't like sand. It's rough and coarse and irritating, and it gets everywhere.
Right. I really want that speech from Paul. It's rough and coarse and gets everywhere. Not like you. You don't get everywhere. Like, what?
That's even better than the actual quote. Oh, that's so bad.
It's so bad. It's like, what? That doesn't make any sense. And there is a similar, it feels a little, now that you mention it, it does feel a little that way. It feels a little like this romance is here, but it doesn't have the nuance it needs. So like Padme and Anakin. I think it's better in Revenge of the Sith, but in Attack of the Clones, it's like, here's the romance. Where's the nuance? Like, romance isn't just like, I like you too, sweet. That's the end. That only works in rom-coms, you know? Like,
I mean, Attack of the Clones is what got me interested in Star Wars, but watching it as an adult, it's like, this is the worst one out of the theatrical films.
And we could talk all day about the prequels. But I will say, thinking about the prequels, I loved the few sword fights. You know, there's the whole when the Harkonnens overtake Arrakis. Like, there's quite a few sword fights for Brolin and Momoa, and even Oscar Isaac and Timothée Chalamet, all doing their own stunts. To be practical, it feels a little Crouching Tiger. Like, it's very practical and not very animated, which I will say is like the cool part of movies like Phantom Menace. The practical sword fighting is so impressive. To get that in this kind of a movie when it would be so easy to turn it into because the CGI is so realistic in this movie. It looks stunning. So to turn sword fights into CGI fights would be understandable. Like, there are moments, like, obviously the sandworms are not real, but man, do they look real. And to see that the actual practical fighting between all these characters is so impressive and feels of a different time.
Yeah, like the sandworm just looks so real. Like in the movie, it's like, is this a puppet or is it CGI? It's that good, you know?
It looks not. You know how, like, puppets, like, I'm thinking of, like, Dark Crystal, the Netflix series, like, you can tell that they're three-dimensional, you can tell that they're holding space, whereas, like, sometimes CGI feels a little like, I can tell that this isn't holding space. Your eye, like, can just figure it out. The sandworm doesn't do that. It feels like it's there. It feels like it has depth in the shot. And not just a digital projection into the shot, but it feels like it has the depth.
Yeah, definitely. So is there anything else you want to say about the movie before we kind of wind down a bit?
Just that it's so cool being a fan of Dune for so long to see an adaptation of this caliber. It's just very cool, and anyone that's a Dune fan will appreciate the work that's gone into this film.
Oh yeah, like what score would you give it out of 10? Do you think?
Honestly, I would say 10 out of 10. Like, the romance thing's a little iffy for me, but I think it's tough to gauge all of it right now because I feel like a lot of the things that I have problems with will be resolved in the second part, and I think in order to fully consider the thing, you'd have to consider both parts together. Sting's lines are gonna be awful, so maybe, but maybe, like, they're just gonna be, so maybe 9.75, like, very close to high marks. This movie had me wowed from the minute it started to the minute the credits ended, and we got the last song of the movie, just so you all know, is The Police, King of Pain, and it was it's just playing as the credits roll, and it was still breathtaking.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I do think there were some questionable choices in this adaptation, but I did love how trippy some of it was, and I think better than any of the other adaptations, it helped me understand what people love about the Dune story. So I think for those reasons, like the acting and the music, like all being excellent, I think I'm giving this one a 9.6 out of 10. It still has room for improvement, but
totally.
But like, it's not a 10 out of 10 like Bob's Burgers the movie, in my opinion.
Yeah. Bob's Burgers the movie. What a good movie.
Yeah, it's so good. Anyway, whoa, what's that out the window? Hang on.
We speak in a unified voice now.
Oh no.
What?
The interdimensional worms that were like messing with this podcast in previous episodes are back, and they've transformed it to a giant worm.
A sandworm? Except it's snowing here, so
yeah, it's snow worm. Oh my gosh.
Oh my gosh.
All right, no need to worry. My other self from the other universe, like he and I figured out that like the only way to defeat them permanently is to sing a cheery holiday song. So let's try to make up a Dunecember song.
Oh, sure.
Together.
Sure.
All right,
okay.
So I'll just open the window so they can hear. All right. 3, 2, 1.
Oh, Dunecember.
Oh, Dunecember. Please do not dismember. We love our gummy worms, not the sand or snowy worms.
We just want to be mentats.
Dunecember, oh Dunecember, please let the monsters leave us alone.
And a Merry Spicemas to all of us.
Like Home Alone.
Oh no.
Oh, good. The giant worm exploded and became dust. We did it.
Oh, that was close.
Yeah. All right. With that bombshell.
Yeah. Wow.
I think this was a really good holiday episode of Delayed Replay. Season 2 will come sometime this coming year, so just stay tuned and subscribe. Vinny, thanks for being on this episode. Where can people find I'll cut that part out. What do you want to plug?
Well, so in this world, I'm doing a bunch of live shows with Comedy Sports, but if you're trapped in the other world, I'm doing virtual Comedy Sports shows because apparently you can't gather in person or something like that.
Yeah, it's weird. Yeah, the other Steven told me about like the shows that your other self does, and yeah. Do you remember the link that I mentioned? Because I can't remember it.
Yeah, it's twitch.tv/CSZN Chicago. And I guess we're doing the Comedy Sports Chicago shows, which is like competitive team improv, where we battle for your laughs. But in this case, it's battling for chat lols. So I guess that's a thing you can tune into if you'd like. Otherwise, my Venmo in both worlds is at Vincent-Tangherlini. So feel free to just throw a few shekels that way, because in both worlds I'm poor. So.
Oh man, it's the worst of both worlds.
The worst of both worlds, to quote Miley Cyrus.
Nailed it. Yeah, as for my plugs, you can follow me at Steven Schinder on Twitter and Instagram, Steven Schinder Storytelling on Facebook. Apparently that's all the same in both worlds, but anyway. Also on a podcast called Star Trek Culture, where we talk about the latest Star Trek Discovery episodes. You can find that on channel1138.com/Star Trek Culture, or you can see the video version on the Culture Slate YouTube channel. Yeah, and I've also recently been on Dr. Holocron's YouTube channel where he has this thing called the Beskar Broadcast, and I talk with him and his friends about episodes of The Mandalorian Season 2.
Nice.
Yeah, I was also on an episode of Radio Razor Crest where we talked about chapter 14, I think it is, the tragedy.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
Oh, no spoilers, but killer app.
Yeah. And let's see. I've also been on the Intergalactic Peace Coalition, some of their recent episodes, so you can check them out. Also check out Trust Your Doctor. I was on a recent episode where they talked about the Torchwood episode from Out of the Rain. What else? I feel like I'm forgetting something. I do way too much stuff.
It sounds like it. I'm amazed you can keep track of it all.
Yeah, I'll link it in the show notes if I forget anything. But I also have a fantasy horror comedy novel called Lemons and Like Rain. You can get it on Amazon. More info on that at stevenschinder.com. And I think that's about it for now. So like delayed replay podcast at gmail.com. Hopefully in both worlds, the year 2021 will bring us good stuff. And delayed replay will be the podcast that keeps on giving. So, so thanks again, Vinny.
Yeah, no problem. This was an absolute blast.
All right. Without further delay, have a good holiday. See what I did there?
I do.